Guys, Parker Olson here. I've been hesitant to make this video for the past couple of years. I want to talk about preferred vendors or preferred contractors with insurance carriers and what that means to you as a homeowner. A lot of times when you call and make a claim, insurance carriers have preferred vendors, and they'll give you an option or two on who to call and who can come out there and address the work for you. Sometimes adjusters can be pretty pushy in terms of saying that you need to use one of their preferred vendors in order to do the work. This is not true. It's not the case. I had an experience with this here a couple days ago, and which is why I'm making this video right now. I was at a customer's house. They had water coming in through the ceiling. Really nice house. I was out there at 9 o'clock at night. We stayed until, I don't even remember, 2 or 3 in the morning, and then we were back out there at 8 o'clock. So we were only gone maybe 5 hours. Came back out and worked until about 8 p.m. that night. At around 6 o'clock, kind of when we were finishing up, that's when the adjuster called back on the claim and said, hey, you need to get those guys out of there and call our preferred provider to come out there and address it. And the homeowner kind of was like, hey, they've been out here for basically the past 24 hours working on this thing. They're just about done. It doesn't make sense to have somebody else come out. The adjuster was still pretty adamant, saying that they needed to remove us from the job and have their preferred provider come in to finish up the work. Otherwise, they couldn't guarantee that they would be able to pay out the entire claim. And the homeowner, I had prepared him for this and talked to him about it. This is a pretty common tactic for this specific carrier that I knew the loss was for. So he was waiting for it. I'm going to read you guys something from the Washington State Insurance Commissioner's website. Right on their website it says, your company, meaning the insurance company, may suggest a list of contractors or preferred providers it's worked with before. However, you have the right to select your own contractor. You do not have to use the preferred provider, and it does not change your policy's coverage. Your contract and what the insurance company is obligated to pay for is lined out in the policy that you signed up for whenever you went with that carrier and that you have been paying your monthly premiums for. It doesn't matter whether you do the work yourself, it's your crazy Uncle Larry, the preferred provider for the carrier, or another reputable contractor that maybe isn't a preferred provider. The coverage is still the same. The policy didn't change based on who is doing the work, and you have no obligation to use their preferred provider. So what makes a preferred provider? Why do they do that? Why are there preferred providers? You would think, you hear that as a homeowner, oh, these guys are, they're the best of the best. They're going to come out and they're going to take care of me from beginning to end, and it's going to be a great experience. That's not necessarily the case. I was a preferred provider for a few different carriers and voluntarily removed myself from the programs because I felt myself that it was a conflict of interest. Why is it a conflict of interest? The number one requirement for every preferred provider program that I have seen across the board with every carrier, the number one requirement is to agree to their estimating guidelines and their payment practices. So a big one is supervisor hours. If you're a preferred contractor on any of these programs, you are not allowed to charge for supervisor hours. So typically if you have a preferred vendor on your project, they're not going to have a supervisor out there. They're going to have a newly trained water technician probably deciding what gets torn out of your home, what's salvageable, what can be dried, and a lot of times it not always, but it leads to mishandled claims. And I'm not trying to bash preferred providers. There's a lot of good preferred providers out there, but they are kind of hamstringed by these guidelines that they agreed to when they become a preferred provider. And I could go on and on about the different things that hold them back from performing the job properly when they are a preferred provider. So for me, it was a conflict, and that's why I got off of them. The insurance carrier sends out an adjuster who represents the insurance carrier's interest, and hopefully they fairly pay the claim and get you settled, but that's not always necessarily how it works. And if they send out their preferred provider, they have an obligation to the insurance company as well. They have 40 or 50 jobs a month that they're getting from these insurance carriers, and so the unfortunate reality is if it means that they're going to shortchange you on a job versus keeping that relationship with the insurance carrier, you better believe they're going to choose the insurance carrier every time. And so that's where the conflict comes into play. I'll read another excerpt on here too that's on the insurance carrier's website. If you use a contractor that the insurance company chooses, then your insurer should guarantee their work. So that basically means you call, and it could be any of them, they all have preferred providers, so I'm not picking on anyone. You call Allstate or State Farm or Nationwide, whoever it may be, and you picked their preferred provider. That means that that insurance company is on the hook to guarantee the work of the contractor that they sent out. So good luck 2 years from now when Allstate sends out their preferred provider. 2 years from now you have a warranty claim for workmanship, and you call, and again, it's any of them, I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but you call Allstate up and say, hey, I have a warranty claim, I need you to pay for somebody to come out and address it 2 or 3 years after the fact. It's just not going to happen. That's not the way it works. So you need to, as the homeowner, unfortunately, the reality is you need to look out for your own interests, and you need to hire somebody who you are comfortable in dealing with. One of the fallacies is, well, this contractor charges too much. That's true sometimes. Some contractors price gouge, and it creates a harder time for the rest of us that aren't and justifiably charge what we do. But it's the same across the board outside of the insurance industry. If you want to remodel your kitchen and you call 3 different contractors, you could get bids from $15,000 to $50,000. And it all varies on the company. They're setting their own labor rates. They have their own costs that they cover. And with restoration companies, typically the companies that have better continuing education or more service-oriented practices where they're spending more time with you, the reality is they're going to cost a little bit more. And that's true in all industries and in all businesses. If you call, I'll use Allstate and State Farm again. If you call Allstate and State Farm, their policies, the coverage that you're going to get is pretty much the same for the most part across the board. The policy is going to be 90% identical. But you could get vastly different prices. They don't have standard pricing. No industry has standard pricing where it's a fixed cost for one thing from one company to another. So you have a right to choose. You have an obligation to hire somebody that you trust and that you see fit to take care of your property. And you don't have to get pushed around. Your policy doesn't change. Your coverage doesn't change. You can hire whoever you want. And if the pricing is justifiable, it'll get paid for. So don't let yourself get pushed around and shortchanged on your claim. Hopefully this helps somebody.